Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the Showdown slate for Thursday Night Football. NFL's officially here. It's Week 1. Thursday Night Football, we got a game between the Packers and the Bears. This is going to be the first game of the regular season. This will be my first Showdown slate video of the year. I will be making these videos every Monday for the Thursday Night Football game. If you guys are, if you've been subscribed to the channel, you know that I made these videos every week last year. If you're someone that's new to my channel, thank you so much for checking out the video. I do really appreciate it. Make sure you click that subscribe button. Like I said, I will be uploading these videos every week. These will most likely go up on Mondays. I will be making videos for the Sunday Night Football game and the Monday Night Football game, but I will make those later on in the week, probably around like Thursday or Friday. But for Monday, I'll be making the video for Thursday Night Football. Not sure yet if I'm going to be doing recap videos where I recap the slate from Sunday. Haven't decided if I'm going to do those this year, but I'll have videos out for the main slate like always. Those will be out probably Thursday or Friday. I'm going to be making a ton of NFL videos this year, probably like 4 or 5 videos a week, just covering all the different slates, Showdown, main slate, doing recap videos if I decide to do that. So like I said, you guys are going to want to make sure that you are subscribed so that way you don't miss out on any of my new videos. For these Showdown videos, I usually just go through the player pool, talk about some of my favorite options. We'll look at some different roster constructions, maybe even build out a couple lineups, just see like how this Showdown slate, how we want to approach it. I'll talk about my favorite spend-up options, the studs I want to pay up for. If there's some value that I like, some cheap guys I like, I'll be sure to hit on them as well. We'll pretty much talk about every guy that I think is in play, that I think is playable, that's going to see time on the field and is worth rostering. So before we do get started with that, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like. And like I said at the beginning, if you're new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button so that way you don't miss out on any of my new videos. Going to be making a ton of NFL videos this year. I'm very excited for this NFL season. But at the top, our most expensive player on the Showdown slate is Davante Adams. He's $18,900 if you want to use Adams as your captain. He's $12,600 as a flex play. So Davante Adams, I don't really need to say much about him. He's one of the best receivers in the league. This isn't the best matchup, though, against the Bears. The Bears have a very good defense. Same could be said for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but this is a pretty tough spot going on the road to face this really good Bears defense at home. The Bears at home last year were a dominant defense. Even on the road, they were really good. So it's a tough spot for Adams and Rodgers, but they're just such good players. They have so much talent that I think they're worth paying up for, especially because it's Week 1. The pricing's a bit soft. You pretty easily are going to be able to get Adams and Rodgers in there. We'll talk about some of the value plays I like. Trey Burton could potentially miss this game, and if Trey Burton sits, that's going to open up a ton of cheap value plays that we will touch on. So Adams and Rodgers, two of my favorite spend-up options. Not much needs to be said. They're two of the better players at their positions in the league. Then you have Mitchell Trubisky, who's not as good as Rodgers, but is a pretty talented quarterback, does give you some rushing upside, and his matchup's actually pretty favorable getting to face the Packers. Packers were a pretty bad team last year against the pass. It is a good spot for Trubisky. He's playing at home, where I believe he played a lot better last year than on the road, and that is the case. At home last year, through 9 games, he averaged 24 DraftKings points. On the road, just 14 DK points for what that's worth. But I do like Trubisky as well. I think it's going to be pretty easy to fit him in with Rodgers. I already looked at some different lineup builds before I started recording, and I was pretty easily able to get Rodgers and Trubisky in there together. So those top 3 guys are 2 of the highest projected players on the slate. Obviously, if you can fit them in, they're worth their salaries. But then you get to like this mid-range where you have guys like Aaron Jones, Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery. I would say out of these 4 guys, my favorite play is probably David Montgomery, just given the fact that he's most likely going to be the RB1 for the Bears. He's going to be the starting running back, and he's probably going to get the most work. Tariq Cohen, the Bears have already said they want to cut down on his workload a bit. They felt like they gave him too much work last year. So I expect Montgomery's going to take some touches away from Cohen. Cohen really wasn't like a workhorse back. He was more involved in the passing game than anything. I think Montgomery, we're probably going to see him get 15, 20 carries, might get a couple targets as well. 8,200, he's definitely my favorite play in that mid-range. Aaron Jones in a tough spot here against this really good Bears defense. I think I would rather play guys like Robinson, Montgomery over him. Tariq Cohen, I don't have a lot of interest in because I just don't know how much volume he's going to see. Just the fact that they said they want to get his workload down a bit. They don't want to give him as many touches. It does scare me a little bit. And the fact that you have Montgomery there for 200 less, who we know is going to be the starter, is going to get the work. Hard for me to have a ton of interest in Cohen, but again, it's a one-game showdown slate. Pretty much anybody that's going to touch the ball, I think, is in play just because it's a showdown slate and there's not many options to choose from. So for GPPs, you could definitely go to Cohen as an optimal cash play. I think I would rather play Montgomery and I would rather play Allen Robinson. But then you have some of these Packers receivers. You got Geronimo Allison, MVS, who are going to be secondary options behind Devontae Adams. We know Devontae Adams is just going to see a ton of targets. If I had to choose between either Allison or MVS, I would probably go with Allison just because I feel like he might see a few more targets. He's definitely someone you could look to with no Randall Cobb. There's going to be more targets to go around for guys like Allison and MVS. So those are two guys you could obviously play. But then you have the wide receiver 2 for the Bears, who is going to be behind Allen Robinson, a guy like Anthony Miller at 6,600. Miller just kind of one of those guys, if he fits into your lineup, I feel like you can play him. Don't really have a strong take here on Miller. If he fits in your build, definitely put him in there. He's not like a first guy in my lineup, though. Then you have the backup quarterbacks. This is kind of like no man's land. Guys from Kaiser to Daniel. These backup quarterbacks are not playable unless the only reason they're going to see any points is if a starting quarterback gets hurt, and that's just too hard to predict. So you're not going to wind up playing any of these guys. But then you have Taylor Gabriel, who's a little bit cheaper than Miller and does give you some upside. Gabriel, a quick, fast receiver. I do like him here as a cheap option at just 6,200. He's probably going to get anywhere from 5 to 8 targets. Might even see a couple rushing attempts on an end around or something. He could see a decent amount of volume for this salary. He's definitely someone I would like to go to in this cheap range. You have Burton for cheaper, but it's questionable if Burton's going to play here. It doesn't look like he's going to, so he might be off the table. Then you have Jamal Williams, who's going to be the backup running back, so we don't really know how much work he's going to get. Then you have the defenses. You have the Bears defense at 5K. The Packers defense is pretty cheap at 2,600, but don't really know if we need to pay down for a defense on this slate because we just have so many underpriced options. So at 6,200, I do like Gabriel quite a bit. He'll definitely be someone I look to get into my lineups. When we build out a couple lineups, we'll see if we need to get there. Jimmy Graham at 4,600 is really interesting to me. Jimmy Graham didn't have that great of a year last year. I thought when he got sent to the Packers, we were going to see a resurgence from Jimmy Graham because when you're playing with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, that's going to just lean to you getting targets, getting the ball in your hands. Wasn't really the case last year. He did have a couple good games, but was very inconsistent. It's not the best matchup against the Bears, but Jimmy Graham is very cheap. I imagine he gets anywhere from 5 to 7, 8 targets. Probably is going to get some red zone looks as well. If he gets into the end zone, which is possible, he could be one of the good value plays that you need. So at 4,600, I do like him quite a bit. I think I would play him over the Bears defense. I would definitely play him over a guy like Mike Davis, who we just don't know how much work he's going to get. Then you have the kickers down there at 3,400. I think I'd play Jimmy Graham over the kickers as well if you can find a way to get up to Graham. He is about 1,200, 1,400 more. Then once you get past Jimmy Graham, it's just guys that aren't really going to play much. You have the kickers who are never high upside options but can give you a consistent 5 to 10 points, like Mason Crosby, who will be the starting kicker for the Packers. He averaged about 8, 9 DraftKings points last year per game. You do have some games where Crosby will kick a lot of field goals. He had 4 field goals against the 49ers in Week 6 and had 17 DraftKings points. If you get one of those kind of games from Mason Crosby, then he's obviously going to be a really good play at just 3,200. If he gets double-digit fantasy points at 3,200, he is going to be a pretty good value play. It's pretty hard to predict how a kicker is going to do if they're going to get the opportunity. If the Packers are struggling to get into the end zone, which is possible against this really good Bears defense, then they could wind up having to kick a lot of field goals, which could potentially lead to Crosby scoring a decent amount of points. So at 3,200, if you're going to play a kicker, he'd probably be the kicker I would go to. Looks like Pinero is going to be the starting kicker for the Bears. He's just 200 more, so he's someone you could also look to as well. Both of those guys are playable. You definitely want Pinero and Crosby. Fry and Ficken both are not going to play. They're going to be backups. So only reason they would play, or only reason they would score any points would be if the starting kickers were to get hurt, which probably will not happen. So if you're going to any kickers, Crosby and Panera are the two guys you want. I probably would take Crosby, but again, I don't feel like I need to get to a kicker on this slate because just so many guys are underpriced. But the one value I want to talk about is Adam Shaheen. So assuming that Trey Burton does not play, which is very possible here, Shaheen will most likely be the starting tight end for the Bears in this game if Burton is out. And he is a pretty athletic tight end. He can get targets. He can run routes. He's not just a guy that's going to go out there and just block like we've seen. I think it was when the Patriots, or when Gronk was on the Patriots, when Gronk would miss games, we'd have Dwayne Allen take over at tight end, and Dwayne Allen would play a ton of snaps, but he wouldn't really run any routes. He would just block the whole time. And you're not going to get fantasy points for blocks. You need guys that are going to run routes. They can get targets, and Shaheen can definitely do that if Burton's out. He's going to get the routes. He's going to see the playing time. Should probably get a couple targets, 4 or 5 targets. Could potentially see some red zone looks as well. And at only $400, he just really stands out as a cheap play that you could go to. Even if Burton's out and Shaheen plays and he doesn't get a ton of work, he only sees like 2 targets and gets 2 fantasy points. Even at $400, 2 fantasy points honestly isn't going to kill you. You're probably not going to win a tournament with 2 fantasy points, but you might still be able to cash. And if Burton's out and Shaheen gets like 5, 6 targets and gets into the end zone, at $400, he's going to be like the best value play on the slate, and you're probably going to need him to win. So when we go over some lineup builds, Shaheen's definitely going to be a first guy in there just because he's so cheap, and the workload should be there if Trey Burton sits. But I think we did pretty much go over the entire player pool, talked about all the guys that I like. So we'll go ahead and look at some different lineup builds. Like I said, I want to start off with Shaheen, just assuming that Burton is out. He's going to be someone I plug in first at $400. I don't think you need to play him as your captain just because I don't know if he has like that 15, 20 plus point upside, and that's kind of what you need out of your captain. So don't think we need to play Shaheen at captain, but at flex, it's just $400. He feels like a really good play. But going with him as a cheap option, it's going to allow you to play pretty much any captain you want. I would say my favorite captain is probably Aaron Rodgers just because I feel like he has the most upside, the highest floor. He's 300 less than Devontae Adams. He's 1,200 more than Trubisky. I would rank the captain plays probably Rodgers 1, Trubisky 2, and Adams 3. You could definitely go a little bit cheaper at captain, though, with a guy like David Montgomery, or if you want to go to someone like Allen Robinson as well. But when you have Shaheen in there at $400 as such a cheap option, I don't think you really even need to pay down that much at captain. So let's just plug Rodgers in there as our captain. Let's see what we can work from there. That leaves us $77.50 remaining per player. So we'll definitely be able to get in Trubisky in there as well. I do like playing both quarterbacks if possible. I think both quarterbacks just give you the most upside. You could definitely go to Devontae Adams, pair him with Aaron Rodgers, but save the $1,000, and I'm going to play Trubisky at $11.6. But then we have 3 spots left. We have $64.66 remaining per player. So we're probably going to need a cheap option. If you want to go to a guy like Jimmy Graham, who I think is a pretty good value, let's just plug him in there at $4,600. That'll get us back up to $7,400 remaining per player. So if we wanted to get someone like David Montgomery, who I like a lot here, if we plug Montgomery in there, that leaves us enough to get Anthony Miller at $6,600, which I think is a great roster build. If I was playing cash games, assuming Trey Burton's out, this would probably be the lineup that I would play. Also assuming Anthony Miller plays. He's questionable, but it looks like he is going to play. But for tournaments, you always want to try and leave some money on the table or leave salary on the table. You want to get a sort of contrarian roster build. So a way you could do that, rather than playing Anthony Miller, maybe you play Taylor Gabriel for $400 less. And if Taylor Gabriel outscores Anthony Miller, there's a good chance you're going to get a big leg up on the field because most people are just going to plug Miller in there because he's the most expensive player and because it leaves $0 on the table, which people are just going to see that and they're going to want to do that. So you could definitely play Gabriel over Miller in tournaments. You could also go to like the Bears defense. If the Bears defense outscores Miller and Gabriel, then that could be a great GPP strategy. Or even going to the kickers, we've seen like a guy like Crosby can get you 15 DraftKings points. There's a chance like none of those guys above him score 15 DK points. So if you plug Crosby in there, that's automatically just going to give you a different roster build because you're leaving $3,400 on the table. Not many people are going to do that. And if you wanted to upgrade, you could. Like you could upgrade from Trubisky to Devontae Adams. If you wanted to upgrade a little bit from Jimmy Graham, you could do that as well. maybe go from Graham to like Gabriel, you'd still be leaving a little bit of salary on the table as well. Or you could upgrade from Montgomery to a guy like Robinson or Aaron Jones. But if I was making like a GPP lineup, if I was trying to get a contrarian team, like DraftKings is running a huge tournament, $1 million tournament, or $2.5 million tournament with $1 million to first. There's going to be most likely over 290,000 people in this tournament if it fills. So in order to beat 290,000 people, you're going to need a contrarian lineup. There's a good chance even if you leave a little salary on the table, there's probably going to be someone else out of those 290,000 people that does the same strategy as you and winds up playing the same lineup as you. But I would say it's better to tie for first with 50, 100 people than tying for first with 5,000 people and splitting that $1 million 5,000 ways. So anytime you can leave some salary on the table, especially in a big field GPP like that, always makes sense. Just gives you a contrarian lineup, gives you a different roster build than everybody else. So in GPPs, you could, with that 6,600, you could definitely play someone like Crosby for cheaper. You could play like the Bears defense rather than plugging in one of the receivers who is most likely going to be the guy that everyone goes to, whether it's Miller or Gabriel. But that's a roster build I like doing quite a bit. I also like going to Montgomery as your captain if you don't want to go all the way up to Rodgers. If you plug Montgomery as your captain, that'll probably allow you to get all of the three top guys, assuming you can get Shaheen in there. So you can go Adams, Rodgers, Trubisky. If you plug in Shaheen, that might not be enough. You might not have enough for that, never mind. You plug a Shaheen in there, that only leaves you $700, and I don't know if Kumro's going to get any volume, if he's actually going to see any targets. Did see some targets last year, but yeah, I don't think you really want to do that. So maybe not. You maybe not be able to get all three of those guys in there, but you could definitely get two of the three if you want to go Adams, Rodgers, if you want to play both quarterbacks again, or if you want to play Adams, Trubisky. But I'd prefer to go both quarterbacks, so Adams or Rodgers and Trubisky you can plug in there. That'll leave you 45.66, so you could play either a kicker for cheap, you could play Jimmy Graham for cheap. Assuming you go kicker and Jimmy Graham, that'll leave you 5,900, so you could play like the Bears D if you want to do that. Wouldn't play Jamal Williams because don't know if he's going to see any work. Same with Mike Davis. Or you could go double kicker, but don't think you need to do that on a slate like this. So those are just some different roster builds. I would say my favorite build here is probably to pay up for either Rodgers, Trubisky, or Adams at captain. My preference is Aaron Rodgers. Then either pair him with Adams or play Trubisky. Either get two. You want two of those three guys in your lineup. I feel like two of those top three guys. Plug in Shaheen as a value play at just $400, assuming that Trey Burton sits. If Trey Burton sits, Shaheen is going to be a great value, and then you can just kind of work from there. I like Jimmy Graham a lot at $4,600. If you're going to play a kicker, I prefer to go to Mason Crosby. If you're going to play like any of these mid-tier receivers, I think Anthony Miller probably be my favorite option, followed by Taylor Gabriel. If you have the salary, you could definitely go to either one of the Packers receivers, though, MBS or Geronimo Allison. But I think that's it for the Showdown slate, guys. I think we pretty much covered everything. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I have a lot of fun making these. These Showdown slates are pretty fun to play. I don't go too aggressive. I don't play a ton of money on these Showdown slates, but just gives you something to sweat while you watch the game on Thursday night. Like I said at the beginning, I will be making these videos all season long for Thursday night football, for Sunday night football, for Monday night football. I'll have these videos out weekly, so make sure you are subscribed so that way you don't miss out on any of my new videos. If you did enjoy this one, make sure you drop a like. I also do have a Twitter account, so if you want to give me a follow on Twitter, I would really appreciate it. My Twitter is @thedfs_goat. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are always open. You can always leave any comments down below in the comment section. If you want to give some of your thoughts on this Showdown slate, if you need to ask me anything, feel free to do so down in the comment section. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I really appreciate you checking out the video, and good luck on Thursday night.